All right, so we are here again with Dandy, the little 7-year-old Mustang that is here to get going under saddle. So he was supposedly started about 3 years ago, but hasn't been ridden since. And so we're kind of just treating him as a restart. So today we're going to be kind of going through some exercises that I like to do to get them ready to be started under saddle again. So one of the first one is I want him to be really comfortable with ropes touching him all over his body. This is just once I'm up in that saddle, if for some reason my rein flaps weird or, I make a little mistake or something catches his eye, I don't want him to go into like a full-on bolt. So we're just going to make sure that he is totally comfortable with things touching him all over his body. And so what I want him to do is just as I'm starting to swing this rope around, just for him to stop his feet. And so I'm just going to keep his head turned in, and I'm just going to keep throwing this end of my lead rope over him until his feet stop. And so right now he's like, do you want me to lunge? Do you want me to yield my hips? I'm a little bit uncomfortable with that rope being thrown over me. And so I'm just going to keep just lightly throwing it over his rump until he stops his feet just like he did there. Then I'm going to stop, give him a pet, tell him that was very nice, and we're going to do it again. So this is just getting him used to this end of my lead rope, getting flopped around his saddle. It's making weird noises. It's touching him on his back end, on his back legs, and we just want to make sure that he's really comfortable, and that was super. So then we're going to go, and I like to do everything on the right and the left side equally. So same thing, I'm just going to have him come around here. We're going to have him stop his feet. Ooh. Good boy. I'm going to rub the rope on his shoulder, and I'm just going to keep rubbing it till he decides to stop moving. Good. And I kind of help direct his face with my hand. And like right here, I'd like him to just stand. Ooh. And then I'm going to rub it on his neck, rub it on his belly. I'm going to start throwing it over him. Good. And he's just going to move around. He's a little bit mad at it. No big deal. And I'm just going to keep throwing this lead rope on till he decides to stop moving. So we're going to keep going. Get him used to this being around his back end. I like that he's not kicking at it and he's not like bolting forward. He's keeping his face on me. He just doesn't quite know what we're asking yet. Good. So we're just going to keep going until he decides to stop his feet, and then we'll release the pressure by taking the rope away. Because we want, when he gets into a sticky situation, for him to stop his feet. So this is practice. I'm going to cause you to be a little bit uncomfortable. And then the minute you decide to stop moving, I'm going to stop and praise. Because we want to build that response, that habit of when he gets into sticky situations, to stop moving his feet and to look to me for guidance. Good. That was better. Good boy. We're going to throw it over one more time. Whoop, and he's still going to move. So we're going to keep coming. Keep throwing it over. Good. He's moving less, but still moving. So we're going to keep throwing this lead rope over. And I'm not launching it hard. I'm just softly throwing it along his rump there. I'm also keeping his head right next to me. So if he gets spooked big or decides to kick out of it, I'm going to keep myself in a safe place. So I'm going to be standing next to his shoulder. I have control of his face. Good. And then we're just going to keep going until he decides to stop moving those feet. Good, just like that. Well done. I'm going to have him walk forwards, letting him know that that was the correct answer. We got a good looking shoe there. Good boy. Good. So we're going to come back and do it again. Good. And I'm going to ask him to stand still for a second. Good. Just while I'm rubbing on his neck. Like, this horse can be saddled. He knows what we're doing. This isn't like something that's absolutely brand new. And so I'm going to expect him to start just standing a little bit more. Good boy. So nice. That was much better. We're going to come over back to this side. Make sure he can stay standing. Good boy. Well done. Make sure it gets thrown over that saddle. Flaps the other side. Really nice. Well done. So now that he can stand nicely for that, we're going to go ahead and do one of my next exercises, which I like to do. And this is, it'll get him desensitized to the rope kind of going up over his ears and all around his body. And then we're going to have him spin with it. And so that's going to teach him to give to pressure away from me. Because a lot of the times horses like to follow us. We lead them towards us and all that kind of stuff. So I want to make sure that he can follow this rope around his back end. Good, so I'm just gonna hold. Really nice. And that was very nice and relaxed. No anxiety or anything about that. No ticklish areas. That was super good. So now we're gonna go this way. And again, we're just making sure that he can be touched in every portion of his body, that he's using his thinking brain. And that was super good. So the next thing that I like to kind of do with these young horses is do a little bit of ground driving to help prep them for riding. And I find that ground driving really helps for teaching horses how to steer and stop and move around before I even hop on them. And so it's one of my favorite exercises to do with these young horses. And so I just have 2 lunge lines here who are actually quite tangled. And so we're just going to go ahead and rig him all up and start teaching him the basics of steering and stopping and all those good things before we actually hop on his back. Good boy. And so we're just going to lunge him in his rope halter. And so I find that with the young horses, they yet aren't comfortable wearing a bit yet. They're still kind of chewy on it. The first ground driving goes a lot smoother if we just hook it up to their halter. So then you're not having to fight with them learning the bit at the same time. And so what I like to do is I'm just going to take my lunge line here. I put it through my stirrup. Then I'm going to hook it on to his rope halter here. Then I'm going to take it. I just throw my excess up over the saddle, which is why we did all of our lead rope prep before we went to ground driving, so that he's used to the lead rope flapping around up there. I'm just going to throw this one off to the side, again, coming through the stirrup. I'm going to hook it directly to his rope halter. And also I'm doing this in a round pen, so that if he freaks out and he starts kind of trotting or cantering around, he can't go anywhere. This is in a really safe setting where he's not going to get himself going too fast like he would in a big outdoor arena or an indoor arena. So really he can't get going too far. Good boy. And then what I like to do is I just grab all my slack here. I'm just going to kind of throw it out here on the ground. And this is something I like to practice a lot with good horses first, because it's really easy to get all tangled up. And it can go south really quick because there's a lot to handle. And so I'm just going to have him start by moving off in just a typical lunging circle. So this horse has already been lunged before, and he already knows that basic concept. Good boy. So we're just going to start out in a nice little lunging circle here, having him walk. I'm using a lot of inside rein. Ideally, he'd pick up his head so he doesn't step through it. And we're just going to have him start by walking just in a nice circle. So this is something he already understands from lunging. And so it's not that different than just his typical lunging circles. So I'm just going to keep asking him to kind of turn in here. You can see he really likes to look to the outside. So I'm just picking up on this inside rein, asking him to look to the inside. And he can keep walking. Good boy. So I'm staying up just in the same position I would be if I was lunging him. Good. I'm going to ask him to pick that head up. Good. And we're just going to ask him to stay on a nice little circle for now. Good. Good job. Ask him to come down to the walk. Good. Really good. Now we're going to ask him to halt. So I'm going to pick up on both reins. Ooh. So I'm just going to hold that pressure until he stops. And he's going to want to turn in because he's used to doing that on the lunge line. So now that he's kind of moving around nicely, I'm going to take my other rein and get it back down into a position where I could actually use it. And this is where a lot of the young horses will kind of get a little bit scooty because now it's down around their back end. He's doing really nice with it. Again, I'm just going to keep him on this inside circle while he's figuring out that pressure on his back legs there before I start asking him for reverses. So right now, this is something that he's very familiar with. It's just lunging. Nothing new. Good. So now I'm going to ask him to halt. Ooh. Good. Now I'm going to ask him to turn to the outside. So I'm picking up on my pink leash, this old brown one. Good. And this pink rein. And I'm going to ask him to just turn. Good. Now I don't want him to get spinning. So I'm going to ask him to immediately move back out onto a circle. Good. Now the pink is my new inside rein. And so I'm just going to ask him to stay on a nice little circle here. Good. Keep that nose tipped to the inside. Moving up, moving forwards. Good boy. Good job. Again, as you're doing this, you want to make sure you don't get tangled up in your lines. Good. And then you really want to keep him moving forwards because you don't want him to get him where he's stuck and then you've got him in a tangled mess. I'm just going to ask him to keep moving. You're not allowed to look at that dog. Good. Good boy. Tip that nose to the inside. Okay, we're going to practice another walk. Walk. So I'm going to use my voice. Pick up on my reins. Good. Very nice. And then we're going to ask him for another turn. Good boy. Super. That one was much better. He kept the forward motion, which I appreciated. Good boy. We're going to ask him for another turn, so I'm going to pick up on that outside rein. Outside line, the pink one. Ask him to turn again. Super. Really nice. And you can see he's just kind of distracted. So I'm going to be picking up a lot on this inside rein, asking him to keep that nose tipped in, just like I would if I was on his back. Good. We're going to ask for another reverse. Good. Again, ask for another reverse. Good. Keep the forward. Good job. Another outside turn. Good. Ask him to keep that trot. Good. Good. Ask him to come in that circle. Do a reverse. Oops. Ask him to pick up. There we go. And then we're going to put him on a smaller circle coming this way. Good. So really teaching him to give to this inside rein. Good boy. Keep the forward. You don't want him turning in. We're going to put him in a position where I can get him to spin. There. That was a really nice reverse. Bring him back in for a smaller circle again. Good. Then have him turn out of this one. Good. He's doing really nice. He's just traveling around super nice and relaxed. Good. Listening to my aids. He's not at all concerned about this around his back end. He's holding his trot really nicely. Oops, now I say that, he breaks. Pick up the trot. Good boy. Good. So we're going to practice a few halts now from the trot. So I'm just going to pick up, use my voice, and say, ooh. And I'm just going to hold until he stops his feet all the way. Good. I'm going to hold pressure on that outside rein because he kind of wants to turn in. Good. And of course, he's going to take a snack. Now we're going to have him walk up again. Good. Good boy. Here, we're going to ask for another halt. Ooh. So I'm just going to hold until he stops moving his feet. He's going to get all fed up. Good. Oh, he's like, I'm going to lay down. And we're going to let him have a break here for a second while he's stopped. He's kind of flustered, you can tell. but listening. And that's kind of the biggest thing with this horse is he does everything, but he kind of gets fed up with you a little bit. Walk forwards again, and then we're going to ask for another halt. So we just want him to be nice and relaxed, him to stop nice and promptly. We're not going to let him roll. Good, we're going to keep him moving forwards. Good. Good, we're asking for another halt. Ooh. Good. Ooh. Good. Again, he's really kind of just distracted. Good. We're going to ask him for a few steps of back up. Good. Now we're going to send him forwards. Good. Ask him for another halt. Ooh. Ooh. Good. Then we're going to bring him back into a couple steps of back up. Good. Oh, don't let him turn in. There, we're going to spit him out. Good boy. Ask him for another halt. Ooh. Yep, we're just going to hold the pressure until he stops those feet and stops throwing his little tantrum. So I'm just going to hold. Yep. And we're going to wait for him to settle. There. I'm not thrilled that he's snacking, but at least he's trying. So now we're going to ask him to walk forwards. And we're going to ask for another halt. And some say, oh, light pressure. Light pressure. And then if he's pulling, I just kind of set my weight back and let him pull against me. Oh, yep. And now he's getting all mad. Oh, he's really mad. We've ticked him off. So this is why I like to do a little ground driving. I would rather install the brakes while I'm on the ground and let him have his little toddler tantrum with me in a safe position than me on his back. That was much better. I think he kind of just got distracted by the other horse there, but it was a really nice stop. So I'm just going to let him sit here and think about that. Good. Oh, he's going to bite his stirrup. We're going to ask him to walk on again. And really, as long as he's soft, I'm going to be nice and soft. But if he needs to have a little meltdown, then we're just going to keep working through it until he shifts his mindset and decides that behaving himself is a better answer. So again, we're just going to have him walk, and then I'm going to have another halt. So I'm going to say, oh, pick up lightly, then kind of ask him to stop by setting my weight back. There, that was very good. Really nice. So much better. I'm just going to have him stand here for a moment. Good. So right now he wants to move forward, and I wasn't ready yet. We're going to teach him some patience. Yeah, he can have his little tantrum here. Have this little fit. This is no big deal. He's just trying to figure out what we're asking. And so I really want to make this a relaxing and experience for him, but he's kind of getting fed up. And so I'm just going to stay really calm. I'm just going to keep my energy nice and low. And I'm like, it's okay. You can have the little meltdown. We're not going to get after him or anything like that. We're just going to help him through his frustration. So we're going to ask him to walk on again. So I'm going to use my voice. Ask him to walk forward. And this is all part of horse training. They're going to have little baby toddler meltdowns. They're going to have moments where they're not thrilled about working. And it's our job as horsemen and trainers to help them work through these different situations and teach them how to be soft, willing citizens that actually enjoy working. Good boy. We're going to have him walk forwards. Because if you think about it, if he stays a spoiled brat for the rest of his life, he's not going to have like a very fulfilling riding career if he's constantly throwing a fit. But if we can teach him how to be a solid citizen with good manners that enjoys his job, he's going to have such a fun life. People are going to love being around him. He's going to be a pleasure to work with, and he will never end up in a bad situation because he has such nice training that everyone absolutely loves him. That was really good. Oh, he's going to have his little fit again, so I'm going to send him forwards so that he doesn't have time to think any naughty thoughts. Oh, yes. And we're going to have him trot around, move those feet. Good boy. Because we really want to set this horse up for success in life. We don't want him to be the menace of the property. We want him to be the most enjoyable to work around, most enjoyable to ride. Whoop. And so I'm going to spit him out. Good. Yeah, good boy. Then we'll let him settle. Good. Now we're going to have him walk on. Good boy. This This horse is very nice. He gets a little fed up, gets a little silly, but always tries so hard. Good job. Ask him to halt again. Ooh, that was much better. I'm going to hold tension on this outside rein to get him a little bit straighter. Good. Good boy. And we're going to have him go ahead and spin out because he's kind of really wanting to dive in. Good boy. Good job. And then we're going to ask for another halt. Ooh. I always lead with the voice, then pick up with my reins. Good. We'll have him stand there for a second. Well done. Good. We're going to have him spin out. Good boy. Have him pick up that trot. Good. Okay, ask for that halt. Ooh. Oh, that was so good. Really nice. You can see his expressions change. He's really trying to focus on me. He looks happier, much more compliant. Such a good boy. So right there, that's where I'm going to call it for him on this ground driving. He had some moments that he had to work through, and then he worked through them and came out better for him. He's now trying. He figured out something new. He's not throwing a fit. And so I'm just going to come over here to his offside. I like to undo this one first. I put it back through the stirrup, and then I just lay it right there on the ground. Then for like leading him, I can take this one. Typically, I like to go back through. Really good boy. And so this would be how I would introduce him to ground driving. Really happy with how he did. And now we're going to get to some riding work with him because he's such a good boy. Okay.